think it's like a testament to those things that do seem very daunting and scary, almost impossible to do. You can almost always do those things. And then just a few weeks later, it's like, oh, this is just, everyday life. It is just whatever.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Responsible with Professor Nikki James. I mean, louder is better in my opinion.
I think so.
Because then we can yell. I feel like I have a fake loud voice. Because if I actually screamed right now, I would be super loud. Neeraj, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. My first question for you is a super easy one. Can you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah. As you mentioned, my name is Neeraj. I'm a graduate of 2020, the class of 2024. I currently work in New York. I'm on the accounting team at Bloomberg at the moment. And I've just recently found a job 6 months ago. So I was going through the job search process for, I want to say, a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Wow. Awesome. How is it at Bloomberg?
It's really rewarding. It's honestly a great opportunity. I really lucked out in the opportunity that I got. I've really been enjoying my time there. I've been learning a lot. And I think the culture is really nice too. And the cool thing about the company is that they just have a department that kind of does literally anything you can think of almost. They have all these random departments that I just kind of stumble upon within the company, which is really cool.
It's like a mystery.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's all been really cool. And then they're also really big on moving within departments after a while. And I think a big thing about them is they kind of take a chance on people from a bunch of different backgrounds. In their culture, it's very diverse by people, but also, your technical backgrounds, what you've done in the past. Mm-hmm. Even on my own team, there's some people who had poli-sci backgrounds, some people who are finance backgrounds, some people who, are currently taking like the CFA.
But yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. So you are now at Bloomberg, but you graduated in 2024. What was your degree exactly? I know Northeastern students often have a mouthful of a degree to explain. Like, what did you actually graduate with?
Yeah, so I graduated with a degree in business administration, and I concentrated in social innovation and entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. When I graduated, I was looking for jobs that were within pro-social companies, the business wing, but within sustainability. Mm-hmm. I was looking at impact investing. Prior to switching to that concentration, I was a finance concentration. So I had a finance and financial operations background that I kind of combined with that sustainability and pro-social innovation and entrepreneurship concentration. So that was initially what I was looking for when I first started.
And from memory, that switch happened after a co-op.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through what happened there?
Yeah. So my first co-op was actually working at a wealth management firm. And then my second co-op was working at a tech company. My first co-op was in client service. So doing a lot of financial operations for clients who were working with this small wealth management firm in Massachusetts. And then from there, my next co-op ended up being similar. It was customer success. So it was a little bit more client service, but more on consulting approach in terms of how to use, Toast products. It was a Toast, yeah. How to use Toast products to kind of enhance their business. So there was a lot of different aspects there that were really cool. It was more operations. There was a combination of consulting there. And then they were also big on cross collaboration. So I was working with like the marketing lead, getting customer surveys, like doing customer surveys and getting customer feedback, analyzing a lot of data. It was big on data analysis and stuff like that. So that switch kind of happened there as I kind of started to realize I liked more operations and strategy. I still really like that finance side, but I liked financial operations and strategy. And the consultative approach and working with clients was really interesting too. We were working with a lot of small restaurants. So there were small businesses. Some were a little bigger, but a lot of times it was like a mom and pop shop. So I think that was really cool. And I kind of liked more of the impact of working with them. And it felt like they had a strong impact on their own communities. And when I was working at the wealth management firm, everybody I worked with was great. I learned a lot there too, but all the clients were already pretty wealthy. So I think I just felt a little more passionate about what I was doing at Toast. And then I kind of wanted to expand upon that throughout my final semester, doing a lot of those capstones within those social innovation classes. There was a lot of really interesting things I learned there. And I kind of felt that strong desire to be within those spaces. So that's initially where that kind of change happened. And kind of, I would say, really informed my search when I graduated and kind of influenced it a lot.
So you felt like you were being more helpful to the people working with Toast?
Yeah, essentially. I also found it a little more fun. I thought there was a lot of different problems that were thrown at you, depending on, what the client came to you with. It was usually a lot more of working with numbers in Excel when I was working at the wealth management firm, which I think I would shadow the client service analysts and the investment analysts. As you're a little more senior in the company, you're working there full time, you will have more of those opportunities as well. But it just didn't interest me as much within like the financial side of, wealth management. Yeah.
And you're a people person. You get to work with people.
I hope
you get
so.
to work with people.
I do my best.
I think you do great at it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so you started out in finance, did a couple of co-ops, switched it up a little bit, graduated Northeastern, and then what happened?
I was so confident during my final semesters when I first started applying to jobs kind of casually. And I really assumed I would probably find a job within the first couple of months. What actually happened was a very long process of a lot of job rejections, a lot of job applications, a lot of coffee chats, a lot of networking. Yeah, it ended up being a pretty long process to get to my job now. A lot of it was spent not how I would have expected that year to go, but in some ways it was also rewarding.
So in that time period, what are some of the lessons that you learned?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest things I learned was kind of how to adapt a little bit. Pretty early on, I started trying out some out-of-the-box things. I was like researching startups, for example, and cold calling and emailing them. Nothing really came out of that, but I think doing a process that wasn't exactly standard, I think can be more beneficial sometimes than just trying something that doesn't work and, repeating that consistently. And another thing I also learned was I feel like you need to build a lot of resiliency in that situation. A nice thing to kind of remember was it's less right now, I feel like, about the candidate and more about just kind of the variables within the market at the moment. I even had friends who had graduated a year before me, and they went through pretty long job search as well. And some of them were also like some of the smartest people I knew in college. So I think it was just kind of not random, but I think it was just kind of difficult. The competition really increased a lot with the market being bad, and then with AI advancing so much, it made it really difficult for entry-level jobs. But yeah, I think over the course of that whole job search, I kind of learned, really how to try and keep your head up. I think it's easy to get down on yourself and really easy to be really bummed out by the search and kind of, you think it's your fault, but, it's really not right now. But I would also just say that there are also a lot of good things that came out of that as well. I think you get exposed to a lot of different avenues. I had a lot of conversations, networked with a lot of really cool people. And even though nothing necessarily came out of that in like job wise, I think my network has gotten a lot bigger. People that I would be more than comfortable to shoot over like an email and, just hop on a call or meet up with them again. And a lot of people who, we just had one call and were willing to help were really happy and really excited for me too when I did get that job offer. So I think it's also a nice thing is just kind of you realize how many people are invested in you getting a job and how many people want to help. I think that's another big thing is it was really nice to see how many people were willing to like either meet with me and talk or offer a helping hand in terms of finding something and just kind of reach out in that way.
Wow, that's really cool. So you kind of networked and kind of did some non-traditional things, but then also like feel like really that season helped you expand that network. And that is a really cool, I guess, outcome of a not great situation, right? Building resilience.
Yeah.
And then just being aware of how many people want to be in your corner and want to help and are willing. But it does take the ask, right? They're not going to magically ESP know that you need help, right? It's you were reaching out.
Exactly. And I think I would say initially, like the first few months, that wasn't something I wanted to do. I very much wanted to like find a job on my own, completely on my own, like based off my own merits. And that eventually did end up happening, but I feel like meeting with all these people, not being afraid to reach out. Once I started doing that, I feel like I was able to learn more kind of from each one of them. I got a lot of referrals as well. And I think that's another great opportunity and a great reason to do it. Unfortunately, those referrals didn't always work out, but it always helps and increases your chance of getting that final offer. And then I just felt like meeting with new people, kind of going over some strengths, learning, getting advice from them. By the time I actually had like that interview with Bloomberg and all of that, I felt a lot more prepared.
Amazing.
I had more of an idea of kind of what a lot of people are looking for within these companies. And I don't think I would have ended up here without any of those conversations. And then, like I mentioned before, also going back after getting that offer and then, letting all these people know that you met for maybe 30 minutes one time and just letting them know that, you ended up getting a job or, you have this opportunity. I think that was it felt really nice too. And then hearing them be so happy for you too was really awesome.
I mean, I was on the receiving end of one of those emails and I think I was just as excited as if it was me getting a new job because, and I think it's the same with all the students that I work with. Like it's so exciting to see where they land, but it's exciting kind of to celebrate other people, and celebrate the win, especially if you've sat down with them and you're like, wow, this is a really cool person. I want them to win, right? And so I remember getting that email and you were like, oh, I just want to let you know that I got this job. I'm moving to New York. I'm working for Bloomberg. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I think I probably told about 10 people that week that I just found out that one of my students got a job that he's really happy about. So I got to share it on as well, which is really cool.
And that too was also, I had been in Boston for the year after I graduated, was applying to jobs. All my roommates had jobs too. So, I mean, obviously that was a little frustrating. I was happy for them, obviously, but it can be a little hard.
Yeah.
And then I was working part-time jobs. And then I had just gone home, moved back home, and was still applying to jobs and doing stuff. But I actually think when I had that chat with you, maybe like a month or so before I ended up getting this Bloomberg opportunity, I think that was also super helpful. Sometimes I think just when you're feeling a little lost in that search or a little unmotivated, sometimes having that coffee chat was also motivating. And it also helps me kind of, I felt like my thoughts were getting a little clouded after moving back home. At that point, I'd gotten to the final round of maybe like 3 or 4 interviews and they'd taken somebody else with more experience. So I think that was hard too. And then you definitely get to a point where you feel like, I don't think I'm ever going to get a full-time job. But after meeting with you, I felt like, okay, I had a new strategy on how to go about this. And I think every single person I kind of met with, I think kind of offered some sort of advice that was helpful in that way. And with you specifically, I think I went in right after that and started tailoring cover letters in a different way. And I think that also helped with my getting the interview at my current job as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really challenging right now because, yes, some of the bigger companies probably running all their resumes and cover letters through AI looking for buzzwords. But the people that are in the organizations that are still doing it the human way, I feel like they want to see you being human, right?
Yeah,
Who
definitely.
are you? Like, who are you? What do you care about? What are you passionate about? Like, you're going to be working with whoever you choose, you're going to be working with them quite closely for an extended period of time. So you want to know who they are, as well as if they can do the job. Because one of the challenging things right now is because the entry-level jobs are in short supply, probably everybody that applies, at least 60% of them, if not more, are able to do the job and would probably be quite good at doing the job. From when you're getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications, which is I've been in that position as well, of receiving it, that you have to cut down somehow. And I think that for me, that intentionality of, oh, this person isn't just sending me a cover letter that they could have sent to 50 other people. They're actually explicitly answering my questions and telling me who they are and why they're a good fit. And when you have 100 resumes and you have to cut down on something, that's the one thing that's few and far between. So it's easy to cull. I don't know if that's still going to be the case now because things are changing so quickly right now, but showing up and being human, I think, has massive advantages.
Yeah, definitely. I know like LinkedIn will I had LinkedIn Premium while I was applying for jobs, and they would kind of tell you what educations people had for certain jobs. Like you were saying, a lot of those entry-level jobs would be people with like master's degrees and all this extensive experience into those buckets. So yeah, it was definitely, I think, those small things that you can do to kind of differentiate yourself or just show that you're putting in a little more effort. I think that does go a long way. I think maybe not every company, but a lot of companies, I think, are kind of looking for that and will notice those things.
Yeah, which is great. Well, I'm very, very happy that you ended up at Bloomberg. So what was the move like? So you moved from Boston and then you were back home for a little bit and then all of a sudden you had to be in New York. How did that go?
It was kind of scary. So I'm from New Hampshire. I've been in New England my whole life. And then Boston's, a smaller city. I visited New York a lot. My girlfriend was in New York for the past year, so I was visiting her a lot. I was getting a little more acclimated to the city. But still, I mean, it's a big step. And to all of a sudden move, my start date was like 2 weeks after I got the offer because I was later in the interview process.
Oh, wow.
So I genuinely, this sounds cliche, I did just put a bunch of stuff in a suitcase and took a bus down to New York. I lucked out. My older sister lived in Queens.
Okay.
So I had a place to stay. And that was that's a huge blessing. I know a lot of people who've just moved, even on my team, who moved for the job and just had to find a place last minute. And I think that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things that I think part of this whole last 2 years, I feel like you just kind of have to do things. I mean, even if it's just going out of your comfort zone, that was like a big theme of I did so many things I didn't want to do these past 2 years.
And you survived.
And I survived. And you know what? I feel like I'm a lot of a more competent person and capable person after it. And I'm really glad. I think to an extent, I had a great time in college. And I think I did well for myself. But I think a lot of times, compared to just the last 2 years, compared to honestly the last 2 years of my college career, there's just been so much more growth just because I think once I got a little settled into college, there were variations and things, obviously, but I think you get a little used to it and you kind of adapt to that climate. But there was so much change and variation over these past 2 years. So that's, I think, another good thing to look forward to, kind of seeing how you adapt and kind of grow in such a short time frame. If you think you can't, it's definitely just in your head. I know I was like, there's no way I can find a job outside of Boston just because I have a lease here at the time. So much invested here right now. All my connections were here. I was thinking there's no way I'd find something somewhere else. But then, by the end of that year, I was applying all over the country. I was ready to move wherever. And I think it goes to show that I think you can do a lot of these things that seem kind of daunting, and applying to a lot of these jobs that you think you won't get or you're not good enough for. It's all just kind of like a mindset.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like, listening to you talk about it, you chose to use it as a learning experience, and you're sitting here in retrospect now, being 6 months into your job, being able to go, wow, I did learn a lot. I did grow a lot.
Yeah.
I bet there were times that it didn't feel like that in the midst of it.
Oh, it never felt like that. This might be the first time I'm thinking back like that. Yeah. It was in the moment. It was pretty rough. I think there are things that a lot of people kept telling me. The one nice thing about, not having a job, there's obviously a lot of stress there, but I think it is a unique time in the fact that you do have a lot of free time, and there are some aspects of that, as long as you're putting in work to network and do all the job stuff. I think you should take some time to really appreciate that. And it's so hard to do. I really didn't do that. Like, I did spend a lot of time not applying to jobs and stuff too. I'd spend most of the day applying to jobs, but then, if I wasn't working, I'd be like relaxing or doing something that I found fun. Because eventually you will, even if it seems like you won't get that job, you will get that job. And then, you're working for almost the rest of your life, So there are parts of me that now are very much like, there were some really nice aspects of having that time and having that opportunity to kind of like do new things. That was also something that helped me not go too crazy during those times. I think if you spend some more time kind of like just balancing, doing the stuff to get that job, but then also if you're in this long process of finding a job, being able to try some things that are for yourself and really take care of yourself in, more of a fun way.
Yeah. Did you pick up any hobbies?
That's one thing. I don't think I really did. I was trying to, but that was like a bad habit of mine, was that I was too kind of in my head about this. And I was probably not the most fun to be around during that past year. But if I could go back, hindsight's 2020, I would, definitely say I definitely recommend going back and, taking some time for yourself. It sucks, obviously, but it is a unique time. And man, I was really, really desperately wanted a job then. And I like my job, but I'm also wish I at the same time wasn't doing anything. And I had
it's like, now I have the thing I want. I wish I'd used that other time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you can pick up a hobby now.
I know, and that's another good thing. I feel like now my time is a little more structured, so I'm trying to get into classes or something. Trying to pick up a hobby like woodworking or something. I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know. This workshopping some options here.
I mean, something that I would recommend, just make yourself a goal to do one new thing every 2 weeks until you find the one that you actually like. Because often the things we can kind of keep it in our head, and the things that you're like, oh, I'll find something. But it actually, like, if you don't go and try different things, you probably won't find the ones that you really like. So, like, go and take a woodworking class and a pottery class. And if you set a goal, like, once a month, I'm going to do something new once every 2 weeks. And then you'll find one that you really like. Or you'll go, oh, I want to go do that one again. And then it'll slowly build up.
That's really good advice, actually. I think, like, another bad habit that I think can sometimes develop from starting a new job or, starting your career is, I think, like the past 6 months, there are times where, I've just been going to work and coming back and doing stuff on the weekends. But then it's just all of a sudden, it's like I'm looking back at the last month and it's like gone by like just like that. So I don't think that's necessarily good. I think, making time for yourself outside of work. That was what one of my coworkers actually told me too. She said something along the lines of, if you can dedicate 8 hours to this company, you should also dedicate a good amount of time after work for yourself too, and really try out some things that you find fun and enriching rather than sometimes just going home and like waiting just until the weekends to do those things. That's something I do right now too. So I'm just trying to get better at that.
Yeah, well, this week you're trying something new.
Exactly.
We're right here.
Yeah.
Yay! All right, so now you just need something for 2 weeks' time, and then you're on a roll. You've got 2 out of the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll send you to a pottery class.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
We'll get the momentum going. It's easy. It's the hardest part is starting, right?
Yeah.
The hardest part is starting often. So yeah. So what are you learning 6 months into the job, right? So you're now like, man, had what feels like a crazy and unique recruitment process, but with where we are right now, with where everything's going, it probably wasn't as unique, right? It's going to be more common to take a little bit longer, I think, and really having to dig in and be resilient and network and do all those things that you like, and the non-traditional things will start becoming normal. So you got the job, 2 weeks notice, relocated to New York City. Now you're settled in. What's it like compared to what you thought it was going to be like? What are you learning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for my job in particular, I mean, there's only so much you can get from the interview process. And for my job in particular, it was very in-depth, where when we first started, there was like a group Zoom where we shadowed somebody in the role. After my Zoom interview, I shadowed somebody in person before my in-person interview. And I felt like I knew a lot from the role, from like what I'd studied on LinkedIn and those moments. But then there's so many more variables once you get into it. And this role, I think, has been a little more challenging than I envisioned. There's just a high volume of things to do, and you're working with a lot of clients. There's always something going on. And I think that's also just the nature of the company, is that, there's a lot of work to do. Everybody's very hardworking, and I think that's motivating as well. Obviously, you're working hard when you're in the job search, but in a different way. It can kind of feel like you can't always see that progress when, you're applying to jobs, and the goal is to get that job. So now it's a little better to see that. I think coming from the job search, which was so hard, and I did so many out of the box things, I think it made coming into a role like this more rewarding and also a little easier to get in, the ground running. I was pretty motivated to start right away, which was really nice.
Right. And you took all of those lessons from like learning how to reach out and get support and help when you need it, and we were able to apply that.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
I think, I was definitely a lot more open to asking questions and stuff like that. And even if I was doing a job that wasn't applicable or didn't have a lot of crossover as well, I think, just being able to ask for help, also just doing things that you don't want to do or you think you can't do. I think just having that mindset switch was really big as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then, coming into the company, I think it has been kind of what I expected, in the sense that I had known that the people were all really nice. It was a nice community as well, which I think is, something to be said about the company. So they have this nice culture. And like I mentioned earlier, I do think I had a bad habit of, after like a month or so, this thing that I think I should be very grateful and appreciative of, all of a sudden just became a routine. Like I get up and go to work, I'm coming back, I'm thinking about, the next thing or the next month. So I think there's times where I have to stop and take a look back at kind of, how far I've come and being in this opportunity. And obviously accounting isn't exactly what I wanted to do, but that was another nice thing, is that, the first job doesn't have to be the end all be all. For example, as we were talking about in my role, there's an opportunity to move to other departments after a certain time frame. So I think that's also a really nice thing too. And a lot of companies, like even like Toast, was very big on people moving in different departments and stuff.
Right.
So there's a lot of companies that do that. And then, just that first job doesn't always have to be like you're set in stone, but still being appreciative of the fact that I am in a good opportunity. I'm learning a lot. My coworkers are nice, and it's a nice company. I think that's something that like I need to really do a little bit more of. But overall, it's been nice. It's been a nice adjustment. Things like a testament to those things that do seem very daunting and scary, almost impossible to do. You can almost always do those things. And then just a few weeks later, it's like, oh, this is just, everyday life. It is just whatever.
Wow, that's really cool. So it sounds like one of the biggest lessons you learned from this whole process and season is that even if you don't know how to do it, you can work it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Even when you're forced.
Yeah.
Even when your hand is forced.
Yeah, exactly. Either you don't know how to do it, it's like a fake it till you make it type of thing, or it's mostly, I feel like, maybe if you don't believe that you can do it as well. I think it's like it can be a long process sometimes.
Right.
The path looks different for everybody. I had a lot of friends who just had awesome jobs right out of college, or even started the job search with me, and a few months went on and then they got a job that they really enjoyed too. So, I mean, the path looks very different for everybody.
Right.
And I think that's another big thing, is trying not to compare yourself to other people. That was something I had a bad habit of doing as well. It's kind of hard not to when you're in those moments, but just trying to remember. It's easier said than done, but trying to remember those things.
Yeah, awesome. All right, my final question for you. You've shared a lot of really amazing advice from your story and journey just as we've been going through. But if you could give your younger self, your 2-year younger self, a piece of advice for the season that he was about to walk into, what would that piece of advice be? You can have more than one if that's the problem. If the decision is the problem.
And did you say a piece of advice for graduating and going?
Yeah, if you were in the same position as you were 2 years ago, but with the hindsight that you have now, what piece of advice would you give your younger self?
I think I would try and just throw everything at the board right away. I think it was a very gradual thing where I was just applying very casually and doing the standard stuff. I think by the time right before I found my job, those last few months, I think I found a lot of success where it was 100% kind of I had a sense of urgency for a while, but I was just kind of doing everything I can for every job. I think sometimes the quantity of job applications isn't as important as the quality of each one. If you're doing the things like the cover letters, or you're doing networking, you're networking with people, doing the coffee chats, or even just doing the out of the box things, finding these random niche companies, or, making a presentation or something and submitting that along with your resume, just for example, or something like that. I think you should just go for it right away and try and explore every opportunity too. I think on the other side of things, you don't have to just go one specific route. I think you should explore every opportunity, meet with whoever you can. Another thing I don't think I touched upon too much is I met with some people who I just thought were interesting, had interesting backgrounds as well, even if that wasn't something that I was going to go into or wasn't something that I seemed like I wanted to go into. I think that gave me a lot of insight too. I know for me, if I could go back and talk to myself 2 years ago and tell them what the last 2 years has been like, it would just be completely different than what I would have expected. So just kind of having no expectations and being open to anything, I think is big too.
Yeah, that's great advice for your past self, but I think that also is great advice for students that are literally where you were 2 years ago. This week they are in exam week, and next week they graduate.
That's crazy.
And the class of 2026 will be out there in the world. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully this was helpful.
Yes,
hopefully,
I'm sure it will be.
Hopefully everybody finds jobs immediately, and then doesn't have to use any of my advice. But
but I guess the thing is to remember you're a better person for what you walk through.
Yeah, that's true.
And you learn a lot. And I think that those lessons are lessons that will pay dividends for many, many, many years to come. And for people that it did happen for them straight away, they'll probably have to learn those lessons a little bit further down the road, right? Whereas you already kind of have them under your belt. So maybe they were the winner of who got the job first. But, just watch. Things happen, everyone, as you've been saying, everyone's on their own path. And you were obviously ready to deal with that and learn those lessons. And so those lessons came to you, and I think that they're going to serve you well in your future.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel a similar way. I hope that's definitely the case.
It will be. If you are open to it, that is exactly what will happen. The world will give you what you're open to. So thank you so much for taking the time to share.
Of course.
I always love when alumni are willing, and you're all also willing, right? You were saying earlier that, everybody was helpful. Everybody wanted to give advice, but then everyone was really happy that you shared that you got a job and you were celebrating and took the time to let everybody know that. And you guys are always so willing to help. And that's something that's really interesting too. I never really thought about it. It's really interesting that we're all very willing to help, but it takes us kind of really being in a desperate situation to ask for help, right? Yet if somebody else said, "Oh, I was going to ask you, but I didn't want to interrupt you," you'd be like, "Dude, why didn't you just ask me?"
Yeah, totally.
And so I think, if anything, guys, if what you take away from the story, there's many, many things, but ask for help, because people are out there willing to help. You're proof of that. You're sitting here at almost 8:00 on a Tuesday night, sharing your story with me in a random office in New York City. And every other person that I speak to, no one says no. So the world is out there ready to help you if you choose to see it that way. So thank you so much for sharing.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
To see what happens from here. So it's like a watch this space.